make your acquaintance, fellow wayfarer. Take a pew here. You must have traveled long to reach us in the here and now. What year is it anyway? My name is Wassim Alsindi, and the project we're working on for STARTS is called the Art of Indifference. And in that, we're exploring the ecological impact and the consequences thereof of energy-intensive blockchain networks such as the cryptocurrency Bitcoin. And the way we're doing this is through two sets of outputs, one of which is a theatrical production called the Black Hole of Money, and the other one is an interactive storytelling environment, essentially a game, called the Immaculate Misconception. So one of the interesting things about having the residency in Denmark as part of the project is that Denmark is actually invoked quite often in terms of the magnitude, the scale of Bitcoin's energy expenditure. And so we're here next to one of the biggest power stations in Copenhagen, and this is burning a mix of carbon, gas and wood, as well as using wind to generate clean energy. But the upshot of proof of work is that Bitcoin doesn't care what kind of energy you give it. And indeed, every single power station in Denmark would have to be running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, just to power Bitcoin. We're here at the Kulturværftet in Helsingør, having been invited by Click Festival in the set of the theatre production that we're going to premiere tomorrow. So you can see around me this kind of dystopic wasteland that the capitalism of Bitcoin has created from now and into the future. One of the reasons we think theatre and performing arts is an interesting way, an important way to frame the existential planetary problem of Bitcoin is that it humanizes the abstract. We return to lived stories, lived experiences, characters that we can empathize with rather than headless, decentralized, algorithmic systems. So by returning to the human, we hope that we can instill in our audiences a sense of the urgency and the need for change.
It is I who voted no.
So I first came across blockchains and cryptocurrencies about 10 years ago when I was in the west coast of the United States, and a friend opened his closet to show me a Bitcoin mining computer. But he was very negative about it in those days, not least because of the price of energy that he was paying. And so I tried to think about blockchains in less of a moralistic sense, less in a good and evil kind of sense, and more in terms of costs and benefits. So the benefits of a natively digital, uncensorable means of value transfer are quite clear, especially for someone like me who is from a kind of refugee diaspora. My parents left Baghdad very suddenly in the late 70s due to political and economic complications with the regime there, and they had to leave essentially with nothing. So when I found Bitcoin, this idea of a natively digital, uncensorable, unseizable means of digital value transfer immediately spoke to me. This is the money that the bad people can't take away from you. So we're here in front of Kronborg Slot, which is the castle that Shakespeare's Hamlet was set in. Now, the story of Hamlet is, an exploration of the dark heart of human emotion, and the significance to our project is that we've taken this kind of emotional kernel and extrapolated it to the present for this exploration of the technological darkness of Bitcoin. So in terms of some of the creative processes that we've employed during our residency, well, as part of the 0x Salon, which is an artist-run collective that I founded a few years ago, one of the first things that we did was set up a writing team for a kind of for collective sense-making as we tried to explore the possible futures that humans could have on Earth living under a regime dominated by Bitcoin. So we mapped out various trajectories into the future, and from those we picked and wrote the scenes for the play, The Black Hole of Money, and those are also the trajectories that players can choose to follow in the game, The Immaculate Misconception. So the interesting thing about STARTS, combining science, technology and arts in the context of this project, is that we really need all of these things to have a kind of a balanced picture and a full discourse. So we can't just talk about blockchain networks in terms of their technical specifications and their network architectures. We need to have this holistic view. And I think that the arts is one of the greatest lenses with which to critically interrogate science and technology from an outside perspective. And so the reason we think this project is important is that the implications of Bitcoin's thirst for energy, it goes beyond a moral problem. It goes beyond good and evil. So there are benefits, but they're increasing much less quickly than the costs. So the costs in terms of ecological costs and the consequences of those escalating ecological costs could touch everyone on this planet, which is why it's important for everyone to have an insight into the inner workings of Bitcoin.
I hope to smell if it is working.